Hello again, YouTube. It is Dr. Zombie, and today I'm going to be talking about Johnnie Walker Black Blended Scotch. But before I get into a full review, I'll go over some Scotch basics. So, it took me a while to learn this and understand it, but Scotch is short for Scotch whiskey, and it's just whiskey that is made in Scotland. There are different characteristics, and overall it's done a little differently, but it's still whiskey. It's just made in Scotland. Different regions of Scotland do it a different way. So you get different flavors out of different styles. There's not one monolithic entity known as Scotch. In fact, Johnnie Walker here is a blended Scotch consisting of 40 different blends of single malt Scotch. Now, I'm going to talk about the difference between blended and single malt Scotch, but first I'm going to talk about how the Scots spell whiskey differently. Both the Scots and the Japanese spell whiskey without an E, so it's just W-H-I-S-K-Y. The Americans and the Irish spelled W-I-S-K-E-Y, and it's purely convention, but if you see it in writing and it's spelled whiskey without the E, it's probably a Scotch or Japanese whiskey. Now, the difference between blended and single malt, we'll talk about that a little bit. Single malt, well, that's just kind of a confusion. Single malt does not refer to one style of grain, but the word malt does refer to how the grain is dealt with, and single means it's from a single distillery. So a blended Scotch might be from multiple distilleries, but a single malt is from one distillery. Now, this Johnnie Walker here is dated as Johnnie Walker 12, and what that refers to is 12 years old. But it does not mean that all of the whiskeys in here are 12 years old. It means there's nothing younger than 12 years old. So there could be a 15 or 20-year-old whiskey in here, but there's nothing below 12 years old. Now, Scotch, one of the things that kind of distinguishes it from other whiskeys is a smoky flavor, but that's a perception. There are plenty of Scotches out there that do not have a smoky flavor. Now, Johnnie Walker Black has a little bit of a smoky flavor, and that comes from one of its constituents in the blend, namely Camellia. And Camellia is one of the Islay Scotches, which I'll talk about in a later video. And Islay Scotch is known for its smoky flavor. And that Islay is just one of the 4 main regions of Scotland. There's the Highlands, the Lowlands, the Island District and the Isla District. Now, that looks like Islay, but it's pronounced Isla, and it's just an island off the southwest coast of Scotland. And within the Highland region of Scotland is a separate, sub-region called the Speyside, named after the River Spey, which is S-P-E-Y. And those tend to be sweeter and a little more candy flavor, and often not smoky at all. Johnnie Walker Black here takes scotches from all of the different regions and puts it in this bottle. Now, that's enough of a generic lesson about Scotch. But so let's move on to the smelling and tasting. I am not a connoisseur, so you're not gonna get a really refined description of the nose and palate and all that. I'll just tell you some basics. Now, you can smell some of the sweetness from the Speyside region. You can also smell what's generally referred to as dark fruits. I think that's just generally raisins and maybe prunes. You get a very small hint of the smoke. Now let's talk about taste. Oh, that's good. So, I'm getting more of the smoky flavor than I have in the past. But like I said, that comes from Kalila, one of the single malt distilleries in the Isla region. Now, some whiskeys are stronger than others, but to be called whiskey legally, it has to be at least 40%. 40% alcohol by volume. And that is what Johnnie Walker Black is. Now, this is one of the quintessential scotches available. If you go to a bar and they don't have a lot of whiskeys, but they do have a couple of scotches, they're likely to have one of the Johnnie Walker blends. At the bottom is Johnnie Walker Red. That's not bad, but Johnnie Walker Black is a step above. And if it's a decent bar, it will have the black. Now, I'll just tell you a little story about the first time I had Scotch. Now, rewind a couple of years, and I was drinking craft beer. But I was also getting older, and finding out that as I got older, that the extra calories in craft beer were adding to my waistline. So I made the conscious decision to switch to whiskey. But I guess all I knew was bourbon, and so that's what I always got. Yeah, I like Woodford Reserve, also had Buffalo Trace, and a couple of others, and I really liked Angel's Envy. But I just kept trying different bourbons. Eventually, I went on a work trip and mentioned to my colleagues that, because the subject of whiskey came up, and I was like, well, I've never tried Scotch. And one of my coworkers was like, well, we need to fix that. So we went to a whiskey bar, and I had my first taste of Scotch ever. Ironically, it was Johnnie Walker Black. And so I got it, and when I took my first sip, I just remember thinking, that's so much better than bourbon. Now, I don't want to knock bourbon. Taste is subjective, and there will undoubtedly be people that like bourbon more. I'm just not one of those people. I found that I do like Scotch more, and since that day, I went on a deep dive into different kinds of Scotch, got them all from the different regions, and I tried them all. Or not all the Scotches, but all the different regions. I've found that I like the Isla Scotches, particularly Ardbeg, which I will review in a later video. But as far as blends go, this Johnnie Walker Black is pretty damn good. It's got a little bit of that smoky flavor. It just doesn't smack you in the face like Ardbeg or Lafroig. I'm gonna end the video there for today, and I'm just gonna say, if your problems are getting you down, remember the KTF. Signing out for Dr. Zombie. Goodbye.